Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Audrey Lewis, Marketing Specialist at Tealium, and I'll be your moderator. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. This webinar will last approximately 30 minutes with time for a Q&A portion at the end. With that said, please remember to submit your questions throughout the webinar so we can walk you through their answers live. For any questions that we aren't able to answer live, we'll follow up with you after. Lastly, we have some related resources available for you in the attachment section of the platform, so please feel free to engage with them at any point. Now on to today's presenters. Matt Parisi is the Director of Product Marketing at Tealium. He has over 10 years of strategic marketing experience across both traditional and digital marketing channels. His experience spans industries working both at consultancies and client side. Dan George is a 9-year Tealium veteran on our solutions consulting team. He spent 5 years on the customer success team launching many of our products and has spent almost 5 years on the sales team using that knowledge to help customers find successful ways to use our product suite. And with that said, let's get started. Matt, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Audrey, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to give you a quick look under the hood of Tealium. Of course, we've only got 30 minutes, so we're not going to be able to show you every bell and whistle that we've got, but we'll walk you through a quick, short example that's pretty relevant to across any industry. But we'll start by giving you a quick overview on kind of the value of the Tealium platform before jumping in. And then, like Audrey mentioned, we'll have time for questions at the end. I would ask that if you have any questions in advance or you're working with certain data sources, go ahead and chat those in or throw those questions out now or whenever they come up, and we will answer those at the end. So just to get started, I'm going to give you a quick overview on how Tealium kind of views the market and where we think that we can add a lot of value. So let's go ahead and jump in. So Tealium connects data so you can connect with your customers. That's our reason for being as a company. And specifically when we talk about connecting data, we're talking about customer engagement data, and we're talking about that customer engagement data in the context of customer experience. And customer experience, of course, is the #1 goal that people out there are trying to solve and compete in the market today. And the stakes are really high. We see that consumers will change brands, regardless of the product that they know and love, after just one simple bad experience. So the stakes are very high to get customer experience right. And customer data is really a critical piece of the puzzle to deliver customer experience. So we really believe that to innovate, to win, to best serve your customer today, it's really critical. And I would say probably one of the most critical things that any company can be doing is trying to understand their customer through data, and specifically putting that understanding of the customer through data at the center of its customer experience. Quite literally, the way that we view the world is that the customer profile is the center. It's the foundation. It is the thing off of which every channel needs to react and have the context of the complete customer experience, because we know that every individual channel can only have so great of a view on that customer behavior. And that's where Tealium really comes in to help companies to organize their data, but not only organize their data, go out and collect the data in a way that's going to be conducive to using it as the foundation of your customer experience. So that starts with our data collection and quality products. This is where we put Tealium IQ Tag Management and Tealium Event Stream API Hub. Remember, these are all products under the Tealium Customer Data Hub kind of overarching umbrella. So these products help us to collect kind of the event building block data. So the behaviors that people are taking, the pages they're viewing, the forms they're filling out, and that kind of data. On top of this kind of event data infrastructure that really helps us to collect data, we have our CDP, Audience Stream, and Predict ML, which basically add intelligence on top of that building block data. So we take that event level data and we turn it into customer profiles, where those customer profiles can have whatever insight you want using that data that's being collected defined in the profile. But of course, you may want to use that data to, stream that data to where you're going to engage your customer, or if you're going to, analyze the engagement that you're having with your customers. If you notice the stream in our product name, the data that we collect goes from collection to activation in under 200 milliseconds. But if you want to use the data that's actually created in that process, let's say you've defined a VIP customer and you have identity resolution, that's a really high quality piece of data that's been pre-correlated, pre-cleansed, and you may want to use that internal at your organization for other purposes, maybe analytics projects or applications that you're building internally. Data access is our product that we kind of put the data that Tealium creates at rest for your usage outside of the Tealium platform. And then lastly, we have our turnkey integrations. So we have our marketplace of over 1,300 integrations that really make sure that you can use your understanding of the customer wherever you need to. And the way we view managing data to kind of put the customer at the center, it's not all about kind of that customer profile. There's kind of a full life cycle of data that you have to worry about. So to create that profile in the middle, we need to first collect that data. So you can think about the beginning and the end of the data life cycle here, kind of as where Tealium IQ and Tealium Event Stream really help you get data and then deliver it where it needs to go. And then in the middle, we have Audience Stream and Predict ML, where we're really adding intelligence on top of that data. But of course, many different roles within an organization have use for customer data. And we're really focused on delivering value across 3 key roles within an organization using customer data. And we find that our best customers are actually the ones that are able to get kind of all 3 of these roles in the same room and kind of solving their problems together, because having a central, kind of repository of customer data is really effective. For marketers, it's effective because you can use that data to create better experiences, whether you're personalizing or suppressing people from your ad campaigns, or delivering a personalized experience on your website. Marketers are using that customer data to kind of drive better experiences. For data science and analytics leaders, it's more about having that clean, correlated, high quality stream of data that can power analysis efforts. So it's kind of the last thing that anybody wants to be doing is really data wrangling and cleaning data. So the more we can kind of collect data in a clean and quality way up front, the more downstream benefit there is for analysis. And then for developers and IT organizations, this customer view is a way of providing operational efficiency in data operations. So you can really automate the collection and delivery of data, automate kind of the management of data to make operations more efficient, and ultimately lower the time to value as you're setting up new programs or setting up new systems. Kind of having this foundation of data is really valuable, so that new tools have something to work with from the very beginning. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan here to walk us through an example. And when we're thinking of use cases for customer data platforms, generally we think about it in kind of 3 major buckets. You kind of have your sources of data. You kind of have what that data is in the middle and what you're doing with that data, how you're managing it. And then you have where you're going to activate those insights after doing the analysis. So we've got a pretty simple example. It's a new free trial sign up, something that should be relevant across many different industries. But basically, we're going to work with a couple sources of data. We're going to work with web source on the left there. You see the web source and the CRM source. Important to note, we could theoretically bring in mobile data as well. We could bring in call center data. We could bring in file imports from other databases that might be available within the company. But for the purposes of this example, we'll stick with those two. We'll look at collecting some event data, so page views, what page are people looking at, and we'll look at a form that somebody fills out, and we'll use the data within the form. Then we'll look at kind of audiences. So, we have these events in the customer profile. Well, what kind of audiences or segments can we create out of that data that we have? So here we'll be talking about a free trial sign up. So someone who filled out our free trial form. And then we have our activation, like where are we going to use that data? Where are we going to use the fact that we know this person signed up for a free trial? Well, the places where we're going to use today are email. So we'll have a SendGrid example. We'll be using Facebook as well. We'll add somebody to a Facebook campaign, and then we'll use Salesforce as well. We'll update the customer's CRM record. But again, also important to note, we could activate this data into analytics platforms like Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics, or to ad platforms like Google Ads or Criteo or the Trade Desk, other ad platforms out there, or even communication systems, business communication systems like Slack for B2B purposes. But with that, why don't I turn it over to Dan to walk through our new free trial sign-up example.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. And the key piece of this that I want to speak to here is the ability to collect data from multiple sources and to be able to enrich a customer profile into a single view of a visitor, as well as the activation piece. So what you see here is a demo website with a simple form. This is just a Tealium website that you could hit if you would want to at lead.tealiumdemo.com. And it has a basic form with 3 inputs and a submit button. This represents many of the forms we see for healthcare companies, financial institutions, travel, hospitality, basically any industry looking to drive data into a CRM. And for e-com, this could also represent possibly like a newsletter sign up. So simple form. But before I submit this form, there are a couple of pieces I want to go through here. So first, notice on my second tab that I have no email in here right now. Now this will be updated in real time here very shortly during the demo. And also notice within Salesforce CRM that our latest lead in here is Mike Larry with Larry Trunks Inc. And then in the future, I will be talking about Facebook custom audiences and how we're able to update this lead contacted working campaign audience. And so those are going to be the key areas that we're going to be focusing on here today. And I just wanted to show you this as a setup for what to expect. So in this case, we have this form. So we should start filling this out. And I can easily put in my information here. Tealium Labs at tealium.com, which is a test email account that we have. And the company name is Tealium. So at this point, perhaps me as a visitor, I've come to the website, I've navigated around, I've looked at several areas of your website, and I haven't made myself known. At this point, all of that anonymous data is still being captured in a user profile. And that's something that Tealium AudioStream CDP does have the capability to do, and is it a big differentiator for us. A lot of times that becomes from having Tealium IQ installed or any other tag management solution that's out there. We can track anonymous user data. And at the point then when we click this Start Free Trial button, this is where a user becomes known. And we're able to stitch together that anonymous and known data into a single unified visitor profile that still allows us to do some activation. We can track that button click in the form fields with Tealium IQ or any other TMS system you have. It doesn't really matter from the website what TMS you're using, we can still ingest that data. And that's a big feature, is that AudioStream CDP is very flexible about the different sources of data that it can get. And now that we have this email address captured, before I start going through and showing you the details, this is how we're able to use this data and track it so that we can activate with it. So maybe send this email straight up, tealiumlabs@tealium.com to SendGrid for activation, or perhaps hash that value so that we can use it within Facebook or Google AdWords. So now that I've clicked the subscribe button, let's check our email. And you can see here, we already have an email in. And if I click this, and always click look safe from my test emails. And so you can see here, this came from SendGrid, as Matt was showing during the left to right slide. Is SendGrid was able to send this email very quickly. You can see it was received just 1 minute ago upon submission. So that's verified that we're able to take data from a website and activate it in real time. The second piece of this is getting the information over to Salesforce. So if I refresh my leads page here, here is my new lead. I put in my name, Tealium Labs, with the company Tealium, and here they showed up. So this is really cool because it shows you, again, we can, based on that one form submitting, we can do cross-channel activation. So we sent an email and we updated the CRM. So I'm looking at my record, my contact record. Here's my name, here's my company, here's the email address, all that information I input. And perhaps the way that your business operates is that you need to make a change to a CRM record in order to drive a campaign. We see this a lot in healthcare. We see this in some of the real estate companies that we work with, that a change to a Salesforce record initiates activation through other platforms. And so we have an integration with Salesforce that allows you to track when any object, whether it's a lead or contact or even a custom object, is updated to send data back to Tealium. And so in this case, if I click the edit button and I change my lead status from open to working contacted, and I'm going to input my trace ID here just so we can see this a little bit later on for some QA purposes, and click save, that information gets sent to Tealium, which I'll show you in a little bit. But the more important piece of this is now that if I go to Facebook Ads Manager and look at my lead contact working audience and look at the history of it, you can see here that this information, and I need to update, I apologize, I need to refresh this so the history gets updated. But you'll see a history log record in there of my Salesforce call from Tealium back to Salesforce that has occurred. So let's be patient with Facebook as it loads here as this comes in. All right, so if we click, again, lead contacted working, when we go to the history, you can see here at 10:16 on today, and if you look in my upper right-hand corner, it's 10:17. So as soon as I had updated that Salesforce record, that record sent an API call to Tealium. Tealium saw that that lead status changed from open to working and immediately sent this user over to Facebook and added them to appropriate custom audience campaign. So this is a sample flow that I have seen and demoed many a time with our prospects and customers about how do we get data from a website and how do we build a unified first-party visitor profile across all of our systems. And this is a great example of what that would actually look like. So that wraps up the initial demo portion of this. And I just want to recap. We had the form on the website. We sent an email and also updated or added a new lead record within Salesforce. And then we went into that lead record, made an update to it, and that update forced a campaign ad within Facebook that you see here. So let's go on then into Audience Stream and show you what a lot of this looks like. I'm not going to get into a bunch of the details here, but what I want to call out is that this is the representation of my user profile information. More specifically, this is my unified visitor profile with first-party data that I've captured across web and Salesforce and any other source really that I can collect data from. But this can also be enriched with third-party data if necessary. And it can be monitored as well to watch my journey from unknown to known. And if you were able to scroll down through this list here on the right-hand side and dig into the details, you would be able to see that. It's not really digging into it. It makes it very simple to see, but you would have that information available. So what I would like to call out is on the left-hand side, on our left nav, this is the best representation of the visitor profile that you can see. This gives you an overview of the data that we've captured on the user, the segments, also known as the audiences they are a part of, and any other information necessary. So you can see here on this audience, demo lead form submitter. That is when I submitted the form on the website, they joined this audience. And then we have down here at the bottom, the lead working contacted. That is representative of the Salesforce lead update record that we made. And now it shows within Tealium as well. And if I collapse this and go look at our visitor IDs, you can see these are the IDs that we use to stitch data together across these different systems. So I had data coming in from the website, and I had data coming in from Salesforce, and these different IDs are how we're able to do that. So the email service provider can use the email ID straight up, and Facebook and Google AdWords would use like the hashed email address. So you can declare any number of IDs that you need. It's not just one. It's not a fixed schema. You're completely flexible on both the data that you capture and all of the IDs that you need to use. And the last piece I want to show before we talk a little bit more about the user interface is if I click these 15 actions triggered and scroll to the bottom, you'll see here as part of this feed, you can see when I had successful API calls in this session to Salesforce, to SendGrid, and Facebook. And I show this because it's a representation of us being able to collect data in real time and distribute that information out to the different platforms. And so the last piece I want to walk you through is just a quick understanding of our user interface and talk about 5 key areas. So first is this data supply chain that I'm showing here. So the last slide that Matt showed, we had the data sources, we had the events and the audiences, and then the activations. This bottom area is a great representation of that. In this case, for our demo, again, we had web and Salesforce as our sources of data that we're collecting data from. And for the events and the visitor data, those are used to build audiences that allow us to activate against an individual. And the activation is what you see here on the right-hand side. So specifically, if I scroll down slowly, you'll see we had SendGrid, Salesforce, and Facebook having their actions triggered based off of the lead working contacted and the demo lead form submitter audiences. So it's just a simple flow of collecting data from sources, taking that event data and building user profiles and audiences. And then third is the activation of that data down to different destinations. And what I want to show you is just those 3 elements, the collect, the activate, the collect, the enrich, and activate, is if I go to the sources and the data sources tab, this gives you an example of the different areas where we can receive data. I'm actually going to click this blue add data sources button in the upper right-hand corner and just show you all the different categories for where we can receive data. Web and native mobile are the most common. Everybody always asks about collecting data from there. We definitely have JavaScript libraries and SDKs to do that, but we can also collect from connected devices. I talk to a lot of media companies that have OTT devices like a Roku, a PlayStation, and Xbox, and ask if we can get data out of them. And yes, we typically can. Communications are, for example, the Salesforce CRM sending data into our customer data platform. We can receive data that way as well, as I demoed, as well as a few other areas over here as well. But most importantly is we try to receive data in as real time as possible. We understand that's not always the case, so we do offer the ability to do batch file imports of data through the CSV file. So collection of data is very key. As long as the system can export data or make an API call, we can get that data into the customer data platform. Next, we can talk about storing this data. So I'm going to go to audience stream and then visitor attributes. And this is how you start defining data against your users. We aren't trying to, as I mentioned earlier, force you into a fixed schema. We provide a very open and flexible schema. We just provide you the tools to store the data. And these visitor attributes are a great way of understanding what that might be. And so each of these icons have a different meaning. It could be storing number data, text-based data, true-false flags, dates, whatever it may be. There's a variety of ways for us to store data on an individual. And this is also where you declare your visitor IDs that you use to stitch data into that unified first-party visitor profile. After you've defined the data that you want to capture on the individual, you use audiences to build those segments of users that you want to be able to activate against. So again, here's the demo lead form submitter that we used upon the form submit, as well as the lead working contacted audience for when the Salesforce CM record update occurred. And so you're saying these are the groups of users that I want to be able to activate against, as referenced here by the activations column here on the right-hand side. This is what then allows you to make these calls out to the different platforms. In this case, there are several different actions we were doing on that lead form submitter. I only showed 2 but there's a lot that you can do. And that really starts with our API connectors that we have. And we have over 200 vendors that we've integrated with. And I'm going to click this blue add connector button on the upper right-hand corner again. Over 200 different vendors that we integrate with, and really over 600 APIs that we can integrate with. And so the reason for that is we want to be as flexible as possible with all the companies and different industries we work in. As I mentioned, healthcare, financial services institutions, e-commerce, publisher clients. We have a wide variety of customers, and we need to be able to support all of those customers, which is why we have over 200. And additionally, we started building these in 2003 when Audience Stream was first launched, before the term customer data platform even came about. So we've been doing this for a very long time. And actually the gentleman who runs this team has been with us that entire time. So these are very well vetted integrations that we have in place here. And if I go into Salesforce and look at the integration that we have here, these are, for example, the types of integrations that you can do with Salesforce. And I wanted to show this specifically because I threw out two numbers, 200 and 650. The Salesforce is one of those 200 vendors, and these actions that you see here are make up that 650 different API numbers that we have. So a lot of flexibility on what you can do with our platform. So really, when it comes down to it, you're wondering, well, what are the use cases or the why for why do we do all of this? And the reason for it comes down to we're trying to improve customer experience with data. The second thing is marketers are continuing to use the tools they know and love, but they want to be empowered with better data, and a customer data platform can do that. We showed you how with one action, we could do cross-channel activation, and that's really important from our perspective. Collecting data from multiple sources is key to building a unified, real-time, first-party customer profile, and that's something you can do with Audience Stream CDP, as well as that cross-channel orchestration, which allows you, the business, to be flexible and reactive, or sometimes proactive, to customer journeys as they occur. We didn't specifically cover predict machine learning, but based on what its capabilities are, which is the propensity for a user to take an action, that could easily be a part of this flow. For example, what is their likelihood to actually submit this form? What's their likelihood to register and become a customer? And include that as part of your greater customer data platform strategy. So with that, I'm going to, that is the overview of the use case, our user interface, and I will hand it back to Matt.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. That was a great walkthrough. I think, so I think at a high level, what we're trying to do there was kind of show the main three areas of how you kind of manage the data. Got to collect the data from someplace, kind of organize it into a customer profile, build in your own custom insights into that profile, and then use those insights to orchestrate data to various systems where, you know, marketers could be working within that channel, or it could be a channel where we're performing further analysis on that data. So we do have some questions. If you have any questions, now would be the time to pop those in. We'll stay on for another up to 10 minutes to answer any questions that may be out there. If you have any questions around data sources that we work with, or destinations where we can send data, or the flexibility of how you build in insights into the customer profile. We could even answer a predict question. Probably the data won't be as high volume as we hope to have in there in general, since it is a demo account. But to get started, so this question is about Tealium IQ tag management. So remember, the Tealium Customer Data Hub is made up of 5 products underneath it. There's Tealium IQ Tag Management, Tealium Event Stream API Hub, Tealium Audience Stream Customer Data Platform, Predict ML, and then our data storage product, Data Access. So the question is, do you need to use Tealium IQ Tag Management? And I assume that means, do you need to use Tealium IQ Tag Management to use Audience Stream and the Customer Data Hub at large? And the answer is no. The Customer Data Hub is very modular. And we refer to ourselves as a vendor neutral data management company. And what that means is that we don't have any particular interests in where you use that data. We really try to produce the best possible data set, no matter where you get the data from and no matter where you're sending it to. So if There are, of course, advantages to using Tealium IQ to get data into the customer data hub. But Dan, maybe you could show us some other tag management systems even that could be available to bring data in, but amongst all of the other sources as well, not to mention.
Yes, definitely is. We can integrate with any other type of system, as we actually have a collection library very similar to what like Google and Adobe Analytics has. So it's just an integration that you add. So Google Tag Manager, we have an integration there. We have one with Adobe Launch. And even if you're using your own TMS that you've built, which we have customers that have done, we have just a standard collect API that we use that specific TMS can use to send the data to us. So we're very flexible. We don't really care where the data is coming from as long as you're able to get it to us.
Cool. All right. Next question is a little bit more around the visitor ID attribute. So Dan showed us the attribute in the visitor profile that kind of lets us know how to stitch profiles together. So the question is, how do you recognize the same customer across different technologies?
Yep, so the key aspect is, from our perspective, is because we work in a very first-party deterministic world, we are looking for the user to tell us who they are. We aren't going to make assumptions or guesses on this factor. So a user will need to make themselves known on those devices. So typically that's going to be from a registration event, a conversion event. If it's a click-through from an email and the hashed email address can be passed through a query string parameter. So that way, if they're, for example, they register on desktop and they open the email on their mobile phone and click through a link, we're able to collect the data from that method. So there needs to be some sort of identifier. And again, it could be any number: email, hashed email, customer ID, loyalty ID, something that is truly unique about the visitor across platforms. That's so typically not cookies. But those are the types of IDs that we're looking for, and that's how we're able to stitch that data together. We actually have a patent on our visitor stitching process that allows us to truly build a single unified visitor profile.
Cool. Next question, a little bit, diving a little bit deeper into the customer profile. How much can you customize the customer profile with offline data sources, such as order data or customer service data, or even models that they've built? So a little machine learning, it sounds like.
Yep. So in my experience, to me, those are all three just another source of data. Well, we can bring the data in from all of them. So let's look at like the machine learning, because that's a great one to talk about. Is oftentimes the data science and BI teams that you have want to be able to continue to use the very in-depth and thorough models they have, encompassing a lot of different sources of data that you have, but be able to activate on it. And we can ingest that data. Our machine learning is only for the likelihood that a visitor is going to take a future action. But we see this all the time otherwise, as we see in-store data at point-of-sale systems that aren't connected to the internet, that the data needs to come in. We have customers that upload at least once weekly hundreds, over 100 million, over 10 million rows per week into the system. It's very common to do. That's why we have such flexible technology for getting data into the platform.
Cool. Let's see here. We got another one. What can you do with your integrations? If you're working with a lot of different systems, can you do more than one thing? So I think you kind of showed that on the Salesforce slide when there was that whole list. So that list, yeah. So it's different by like.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I showed you Facebook, I showed Salesforce for Facebook. It would be add or remove a user from a custom audience. For an email, it's send email or add a user to an email list or update their record. Every technology out there has a different set of APIs that we code specifically to those. And what's also really cool is, yes, we have all those APIs, but sometimes there are custom systems out there that need to receive data a specific way, and we're very flexible on how we do that. We can either use our native webhook functionality, which allows you to build your custom server-to-server call, or we can send that through to our integrations team and they can look at building native support for that. I actually worked with that team when Audience Stream was launched, and it was the sole purpose was how do we support all of these digital platforms that our customers need. So it definitely could work with so many different technologies.
Cool. All right, well, last call for questions. If there are any more questions out there, go ahead and type those in right now. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and plug our assets that we've got in the attachments section of your screen. So if you do want more information, I would go ahead and look at those assets. We have our Tealium State of the CDP 2021 report, which is an in-depth look at kind of what are the trends in the market right now. We surveyed a whole hundreds of people to figure out what they want their CDP to do. So it's pretty interesting to see how those priorities have changed from 2020 to this year, since we've had some pretty big events in the meantime. We also have our definitive guide to customer data platforms. If you want one thing to learn everything you need to know about customer data platforms, that would be the thing. I think it's on the order of 70 or 80 pages long. It'll go through how to come up with use cases, how to measure them, how to, put together the team that manages them, what skills you need on the team, a whole bunch of information. And then lastly, if you want more information about Tealium Customer Data Hub itself, we have a look at the components of the CDH down there. And of course, if you did not see an example of what you were hoping to see in the demo, we are available to put together a custom demo for you using the data sources that you want to see and the data destinations that you'd like to see, or the insights that you want to build into the profile. So I definitely invite you to reach out for a customized demo if it makes sense. Well, we didn't get any more questions, Dan. So I think our time is done here. Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Audrey, for introducing us, and thank you to everyone out there who has taken the time out of their busy day to take a look under the hood of Tealium. We appreciate your time, and if there's any way we can help you any further, just let us know. Thank you.